Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture with me, your host, Michael Lavers. Welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic week so far, and I'm quite looking forward to sharing this episode with you today. This is episode 319. What a large number we have got to so far. But I'm calling this episode something like letting go or something like that. I might change it later. But I want to talk a little bit more personally today about something that I've been facing recently, a problem I've been having recently, and for actually quite a while now. And this is something that I always feel a little bit uncertain about, so this is why your feedback as a listener is always appreciated. I occasionally get comments on Level Up English or emails with feedback, and it's always really lovely. I love to hear from all of you, and I think you'll be surprised with how much your words can affect what I do. Both good and bad. I rarely get bad comments, which is very fortunate, but even just one piece of encouragement or one comment saying I liked this episode can really, not only make my whole day feel happy, but then also encourage me to do more of that in the future. So if you like an episode, please let me know, and that's the best way of making sure I do more in the future. Maybe you think you're just one person, it's not doesn't count for anything, but it really does. So yeah, all of that rambling to say, I often feel a little bit uneasy, a little bit uncomfortable talking too openly about myself, mainly because I kind of feel like, who am I? I'm just some random guy trying to help you learn English, and who really wants to hear about me? But then every time I talk about my own experience or my opinion, I actually get a lot of emails or comments saying that they really enjoyed it. And I can understand, when I listen to other people, it can be really nice when you hear another human having a similar experience to you. It helps us relate to the other person. And the more I think about it, the more I feel this is why many of you might be listening. I don't know, let me know, but it's kind of, AI teachers are becoming more and more common now. I don't think they're that good at the moment, but they will get better. But I think this is one of the things that humans have over AI, is that we can talk openly, we can connect as, from person to person, and it's not just me giving you information, it's me sharing my human experience and helping you learn at the same time. So hopefully this is something that will be useful to some of you, even though I do feel a little bit uncomfortable sharing some of my views, right? But anyway, it's nothing too personal. I basically want to talk about the balance of letting things go and speaking up. So when I was thinking about this topic, I realized there are so many amazing phrasal verbs and expressions that are related to this topic that, we would just use naturally. I didn't have to think about them. They just came up naturally. And so I did write them down to make sure I can include them all in today's talk. So we'll see how I do with that. But I think we'll get right into it. I'll explain my situation now. So people often do things that I might perceive to be, that I perceive to be rude or inconsiderate, right? And I feel like, I don't know if I'm different than other people in this way. Maybe we're all similar, where we can get irritated by other people. I am quite a sensitive person where I'm easily irritated by sounds and other things like that. But my main issue here is I struggle with finding the balance between speaking up and letting go. So let's talk about these two first of all, and then I'll give you an example to illustrate exactly what I mean. So to speak up obviously comes from the word speak. We're not doing anything upwards, so don't worry too much about the meaning of that preposition. But speaking up is when you Express your opinion. You tell your opinion clearly, especially when something is bothering you, annoying you in some way. So if you don't like something, maybe you should speak up. It's kind of like letting your opinion be heard. So this podcast today is me speaking up to the world, we could say. The other word, let go. Maybe you know this one. Literally, let go. Here is some cable tie if you're watching on YouTube. If I let go, I drop, right? I let go of that thing. We can also use it emotionally, right? If something is annoying us, we can let go of that feeling, let go of that emotion, right? And this is very common in Buddhism and other similar spiritual practices as well that I'm interested in. Letting go, right? So there are many things that are out of our control, and in order to have a happy life without stress, we need to let them go. Maybe we'll look at some examples later. But let me share with you one area of my life where I feel a lot of frustration. And I wonder if you relate to this too. This is in the gym. I've had the healthy habit this year of going to the gym every morning. I like going in the morning because it makes me wake up for the day. I feel good to start my day when I go to the gym first thing. But the gym is not very big, and there's a lot of occasions where people kind of get on my nerves, right? I think annoy might be too strong, but get on my nerves is a little bit less strong, but the meaning is the same. They get on my nerves, they annoy me. And this might be something small, like people making loud noises when they lift weights, right? And it's very uncomfortable when the gym is quiet and someone's like really grunting, like that kind of noise. It really, really annoys me. I feel like it's just not necessary. And it may be the weight is very heavy, but I don't think you need to make those noises to lift weights. And I don't know if, there could be a few reasons why I get very irritable in the gym. Irritable means easily annoyed. It could be because there's lots of people in a small space trying to do the same stuff, right? So, whenever people come together, strangers, it's likely they might annoy you. I also wonder if it's because it is early in the morning. It's before my breakfast. I haven't really woken up yet. I'm tired. Maybe I'm a little bit grumpy because I've only just woken up. And that could also be a factor as well. But it could be, again, so this is thinking about myself, but also thinking about other people. It might just be that people that go to the gym are just annoying. That could also be true, that a lot of people that go to the gym, they don't care about other people much. I don't know. I mean, that sounds extreme, but it's a possibility for sure. So here's the thing that caused this whole episode idea, that helped me think of this idea. I wanted to use a specific weight. We call it a dumbbell, which are the weights you lift with one arm in the gym. And someone was using the weight, which I think, okay, fair enough. We're all allowed to use the weights. I don't have the right to use them over you. We have equal use. But this person took the weights outside of the gym, and they were using them outside. And I was waiting for like 1 hour, almost 1 hour, and they were still using them. And I was kind of watching them out the window, and most of the time they weren't even using them. They were like resting their phone on the weight, or they were sitting on the weight. They weren't actually using it that much. And I found myself getting really annoyed by this. In the end, I was just too tired. I didn't want a confrontation that early in the morning, so I used a different weight instead, and it was a little bit too heavy for me, so it was a bit challenging. But yeah, I really had that problem. Like, should I speak up and say, hey, you've been using this weight for too long. I think it's my turn now. Like, be respectful for other people. Or should I let it go and just say, they have the right to use the weight, very kind of Buddhist attitude, right? And say, I can use another weight. That's totally fine. In fact, maybe it's a good opportunity for me to try something heavier and increase my strength. I need to be flexible. I need to be calm. So there's always that balance, which I really struggle with finding in many situations. So once again, speaking up and letting your opinion be heard versus letting go of something. Another example where I think is more clear, just to illustrate, if you go on a plane, I'm sure you have come across a crying baby at some point. Very annoying, right? A crying baby. And in those situations, I let it go, right? I do find it quite annoying. Of course, you can do other things to deal with it. Like I always bring noise cancelling headphones. So I put them on, put on a podcast, and I can't even hear the baby. It's amazing. So I think that's one thing you can do. But in addition to that, you can just let it go and say, babies cry. You know, that's what they do. Me complaining or me getting angry, even inside, is not going to change the baby's behavior. I understand that babies cry, that baby needs to travel for some reason, so let's just let it go. It's out of my control. However, another horrible example that comes to mind was one plane I was on. There was a child being really disruptive. Not so much a baby, maybe a toddler. It could be 4 years old, maybe, I'm not quite sure. But they were being very loud, screaming. And luckily, this kid was not too close to me. He was across the aisle. So I could see him from a few seats away, but I was mostly undisturbed. But I could see him for the whole flight, like pulling on the chair in front of him, like shaking the chair. And the poor man in front of that kid was being pushed back and forward and like pushed around for the entire flight, screaming right behind his ear. And I don't know why, but he did not speak up. He said nothing. I don't know if he let it go or maybe he did get really angry, but he didn't speak up. He kept it inside. And I felt really bad for him, but it was far away and not really my problem. But in that case, if it were me, I definitely would speak up, because in that case, it is controllable. That behavior is not acceptable. Crying on a plane, let's not blame the parents. It's not the parents' fault. Pushing other passengers' chairs and shouting and screaming, I would blame the parents. It is the parents' fault then. They need to control their child better. So I think there is a clear balance in some situations, but there's always like a grey area where I'm not sure. A grey area, by the way, means an area where the answer is not a clear yes or no. It's not black or white. It's in the middle. It's grey. Right. So another thing is I don't want to be a pushover. Well, we'll explain these words in a second. I don't want to be a pushover. I don't want people to walk all over me. But I also don't want to encourage frustration in my mind. So pushover, in this case, this is a noun. You might recognize the words push and over, but here it's a noun. And to be a pushover is to be a person who is easily influenced by other people or easily taken advantage of. And this is just because they don't speak up. Right? If you don't speak up, you might be a pushover. And sometimes I will admit I am a bit of a pushover. Like if someone sends me an email and says, Michael, I really want your help with this problem. Can you help me? Then my first feeling is like, yes, I want to help you. But when I think about it, what they're asking me to do is really unreasonable. I don't have a specific example. I'm just kind of making up an example. But let's say someone is saying, Michael, can you do my homework for me? Right, I have 5 pages of homework. Please do my English homework. My first feeling is like, yes, I want to help. But then when I think about it, that's unreasonable. I'm not going to do all that work for you for free just so you can save some time. And that's not fair. So I don't want to be a pushover, and therefore I will say no. And I think owning my own business, I've had to get much better at not being a pushover. And that second expression that I mentioned was very similar. People walk all over you is kind of similar. So you're a pushover and then people walk over you. So it's like you're on the floor and they're walking on top of you. So it's kind of like they're taking advantage of you. They're taking advantage of your weakness or your kindness, right? I see this in many people that are very kind and then people take advantage of them. And I think for me, I try to find that balance. Like if someone I know, maybe I've spoken to them before, if they ask me, Michael, I've just made a new course, can you share it on your Instagram page? They maybe because my Instagram has more followers than they do, they want me to share it. And I think, okay, fair enough. I understand what it's like to want to get your course out there. I'm happy to share it. It looks like a good course. Let's do it. But then if they keep asking me again and again, Michael, it's next week, I've got a new course now, share this one as well, then maybe I will draw the line. I will say, I'm not able to share every course you make. I can help sometimes, but not every time. I'm going to have some balance there. So I want to be kind, but I don't want to let people walk over me. So there's a balance there as well, which can be very hard to find. In fact, I can think of another example. This, again, it might be, a bit personal. It is really sharing a little bit of my frustration that I get in my daily life. So where I live, we have some kind of shopping trolleys. They're kind of like big things with wheels that you can use to bring stuff up to your room, right? So if you have a delivery or you have lots of shopping that you want to take up, you don't need to carry it all with your hands because you can put it in this trolley and wheel it to your room. But in the whole building, there are only 2 or 3 of these trolleys. There aren't many. So it's really important once you finish with them to bring them back down to the floor where you found them. And there are many people near where I live who do not do this. And it drives me crazy. They bring these up to deliver something to their room and they leave it outside their room for many, many hours, sometimes the whole day. In my opinion, this seems like really, really selfish behavior because other people are not able to use these trolleys. And this is another example where it's not affecting me because I don't need to use the trolley, but I feel annoyed because they are not following the rules. Like, can you relate to this? Do you have a similar thing in any situation? So in this situation, I think I'm more likely to let it go because, I don't know, it seems a little bit extreme to knock on their door and say, hey, put this back. I'm not the building staff. I'm just a random person. It seems like I'm allowing the anger to get to me too much. So I feel like the best thing to do would just be to let it go. And, as long as it's not affecting me personally, then maybe it's okay. I don't know, maybe. Because I feel like if I did allow this thing to annoy me, it would build up inside of me. The more that we feel frustration, the more frustration we have, right? The more we, I suppose the more energy we give to some feeling, the more that feeling comes back again and again and again, right? So I don't want to encourage these feelings. I think it's a good habit to let things go. And it stops them coming up more in the future. And I think that's really the Buddhist way that I was talking about before. That's the kind of spiritual way of practicing letting go, practicing non-attachment, as you might say in Buddhism. And that's a nice way to have a more peaceful life. But yeah, as I said before, it's always finding that balance is so difficult for me. So if you have any advice, please let me know. I'd love to hear other opinions on this matter and whether you think I should speak up or let go. I think maybe just to continue or finish up this episode, I could talk about some other common examples that maybe you could relate to. So one of these is cutting in line. So I'm going to go through all of these and ask you, what would you do in this situation? So cutting in line, or maybe in British English, we might say to cut in the queue. You're queuing up maybe at the airport and someone pushes in front of you. I suppose you might think, well, it's going to maybe take 30 seconds out of my day. It's not a really big problem if they go ahead of me. I can let them go. Or you might think, that's really rude. I was here first. Why are you going in front of me? That's so disrespectful. What would you do? For me, I would speak up. I think it's very difficult, maybe for British people to speak up. I think British people do not like confrontation generally. So in the past, it's happened to me, when I was younger, where people did cut in line and I would say nothing. And I really would feel like people are walking all over me. I felt like such a pushover and I hated that feeling. But I think these days I would definitely speak up about it. It's just so rude, it's so disrespectful. Of course it might be they just didn't realise, but I feel like it's often a cultural thing. Like other cultures don't queue as well as we do in the UK. You know, you might know that we love to queue in the UK and we take it very seriously. So when people don't do it here, I might speak up. I think it depends though, like if you're queuing to get on the train and there's no seats anyway, it doesn't really matter if someone goes in front of you because it's not really affecting you. But if it's something like an airport, then I think I would speak up because them going ahead of me is causing me to take longer in the queue. So I think it depends, but yeah, I would speak up in that situation despite feeling very awkward, probably. And if you're wondering how I would do that in English, I think I would just say, "Excuse me, I was in the queue before you." I think I would just say very simply and plainly, "Excuse me, I was ahead of you." Something like that. I was ahead of you in the queue. Speaking of queues, another situation that actually happened is there was a man in the queue behind me when I was in the airport, and he kept like pushing. He was basically touching his back. He was standing so close behind me that his entire body was like pressing into my back. And it was so unnecessary. He had loads of space behind him, but I don't know, people just have no personal space sometimes. So I feel like a lot of British people can be quite uncomfortable speaking up. So we might let our anger bottle up, like boil up. So this is when your anger builds inside of you until it kind of blows, right? And I think a lot of cultures do this. Maybe it's common in Thailand as well, where they'll be very polite, but they'll let anger boil up inside them. And for me, I didn't tell him, I didn't say it, I didn't speak up, but this was so honestly disgusting and also so disrespectful to me that I very kind of quickly just like, how could I say, moved my body away. So I like turned my body to the side to the point where my bag like kind of hit him. You know, I didn't try to like hit him. I just wanted to like show him that I was annoyed, and my bag kind of hit him. And then he said, "Oh, sorry," and he moved back. So I think in that case, I don't know. I was almost too afraid to speak up, but the fact that I moved and reacted gave the same message. But again, I think in that case, I let my anger get the best of me, and I acted where maybe I should have just said politely, "Hey, you're a bit close. Can you step back?" I think that's the more mature thing to do, isn't it? Now, this one is a little bit harder to tell, right? This is another grey area, I think. So this could be someone not texting you back. They're not replying to your messages. Now, I have, in fact, my very good friends, probably my best friends are like this. I will send them a message and they will just never reply. And, you know, I know that they're my best friends. I know that I'm their best friend. So I know that it doesn't mean anything. But honestly, it still hurts. It still feels disrespectful. But of course, I know how it goes. You read a message, the notification is gone, and you might think, okay, I'll reply to that when I have some energy later. I'm a bit busy right now. I'll reply later. And of course, you totally forget and you never reply. It does get quite annoying to me when I feel like I'm the friend that puts in all the effort. But I think in this case, I might let it go. I think for me, that would be the best choice here. Let it go, because I can understand they might be busy and try not to take it personally. I think that's the best way. But yeah, maybe mention, hey, you forgot to reply, and that might do something. But I think letting it go in this case would be my choice. But what do you think? How about you? Now, here's one example that is the most annoying thing that you could possibly do to me. And this is eating loudly, chewing loudly. If people go to a restaurant and they chew loud with their mouths open, it's the most annoying thing. And, you know, I would even go so far as to leave the restaurant to avoid being near that person. I hate it so much. I really do. And in this situation, it happens so much that I know how I deal with it, right? In the past, I would usually just kind of feel the anger inside me and not do anything. I would feel like a pushover, honestly. I wouldn't do anything. These days, I do not speak up because, you know, I feel like it probably wouldn't achieve anything. You know, for me, I hate it, but maybe in some cultures it's not rude. Maybe it's not a problem for some people. So I wouldn't necessarily speak up, but I would move table. Right? As soon as I hear someone eating loudly, I will instantly just move. I'm not going to deal with that any longer. So that's my solution to this one. Because I think, letting it go is not really an option for me. It's just too annoying. But also speaking up just seems a bit unnecessary. And maybe speaking up wouldn't really change it. If they've been eating loud their whole life, I don't think speaking up will really change their habit all of a sudden. So I don't know, that's my opinion. But anyway, I think I'll leave it there. I would love to encourage you though to give me first of all, give me your advice. How can I improve on this situation in this area? I'd love to hear what you think. Also, give your own opinions on the examples I mentioned today. Eating loudly, crying babies, gym, all that kind of stuff. Let me know what you would do in that situation. And also, let me know other areas that you find annoying and tell me whether you would speak up or let it go. I would love to hear what you have to say. I think we'll end today with a nice quote from who else but the Buddha himself. And this is a very common saying that you may have heard before. The root of suffering is attachment. The root of suffering is attachment. In other words, the cause of suffering is attachment to things. I suppose we could say, if you don't let things go, you will suffer. So this is why I think letting go is such a powerful thing. If you can do it, let things go and you will stop being annoyed. So don't be attached to your feelings of frustration. But anyway, thank you so much for watching or listening today. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye. You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.